SpaceX is entering the final stretch before Starship Flight 11. After weeks of intense pad testing, engine checkouts, and critical upgrades, Elon Musk and his team have finally locked in the official launch date. This next mission isn't just another test, it could be a huge leap forward for the entire Starship program. With new design tweaks, a fully upgraded Super Heavy booster, and lessons learned from the last flight, Flight 11 is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious launches yet. So, let's break down what SpaceX just revealed, why this launch is so important, and what to expect when the world's most powerful rocket roars back to life. One of the places where testing has occurred a lot recently is the Massey Outpost, but since the last time, SpaceX has progressed rather quickly. Through the repair work on the static fire test area at the Massey Outpost. These upgrades involved moving fluid and power lines underground, as we can see here in these shots. SpaceX also had to rebuild some of the systems that had been damaged during the explosion, such as the control bunker for the static fire stand. This time, it's being rebuilt with thick concrete walls for protection. Teams are also building a brand new, general control bunker, further away, closer to the entrance to Massey Outpost, which will be used for the entirety of the facility. At the time of this flyover, teams had begun installing the first structural pieces for that new service structure, which, as its name implies, will provide an interface between the ground systems and the ship to service it with all the commodities and other functions needed during static fire testing. Since our last flight, teams seem to also have refurbished the water deluge tank farm at the site and have upgraded the methane tank farm as well. This tank farm is a bit further away than the previous one, and it almost seems like they may build a blast wall next to it for additional protection at some point down the line. From another perspective, we can also see curved pipes laying next to the flame trench at the static fire stand at Massey's. From above, we could also see all the work that's been going on for the new booster cryostation, as well as the new booster thrust simulator stand, which will be used on the upcoming generation of boosters. Alright, we'll come back to the Massey Outpost when it's time to talk about some of the testing that's happened there. But for now, that's a good chunk of the work going on there. They're quite busy, as you can see, and that makes a lot of sense, given that the Massey Outpost is critical to the testing and launch flow here in Starbase. Moving over to Starbase proper, let's head to the Sanchez lot, where there are some interesting pieces of hardware worthy of pointing out. A big one is of course the Ship Quickness Connect arm that will be installed at the Pad 2 tower. Things have been working on this arm for quite some time, modifying it to a newer design compared to the one at Pad 1. While the base structure is similar to the arm at Pad 1, the internals have changed substantially, with more of the control panels and access platforms located closer to the tower rather than on the Pad 1 tower where they're located further from the tower. This sort of makes sense as that would put all those fiddly bits of hardware further away from the blast of Raptor exhaust during launch. Since they're closer to the tower, so they're further away from Raptor exhaust. We're not fully sure when the arm might be installed, but it's not like it's going to be needed for a few more months, so SpaceX can take all the time they need. The Sanchez lot also hosts a bunch of the transport stands, tooling, and some of the other test stands, including the ship thrust simulator stand. This stand is the one that's used to carry out cryogenic proof testing of ships, and it has 6 rams that push up against the aft of the ship to simulate the thrust of Raptor engines. From high above, we can see that teams are working on this stand as evidenced by the umbrellas set up on it, which are often used for protection while welders are working on various hardware. And yes, that little stubby nose cone thing next to it is all the remains of Ship 26. It makes sense that they may be modifying the stand, since Block 3 ships have a much different aft section compared to the current version of ships. On the one hand, it's going to use Raptor 3, which is a much more powerful engine, and on the other hand, the aft dome and engine placement will also be different. Compared to the test on last week's, this one was way more powerful, with much more water coming out of the flame trench. Also, the weir relief vent at the water deluge tank farm went a bunch higher, even surpassing the height of the ship cutie arm, which is like 300 feet up. What's even more interesting is the fact that they did another test less than 20 minutes after the first one that day. And before, this had happened on Friday after a deluge test had already occurred on Thursday. Unless I missed it, we didn't exactly see a convoy of water trucks headed to Pad 2. It turns out that unlike at Pad 1, the Pad 2 flame trench has some pumps that collect the water out of the bottom of the trench and put it back in the storage tanks. So this probably is what allowed SpaceX to refill the farm and do Friday's tests after having used the water already on Thursday. This means SpaceX won't need as much water trucked in after tests or flights from Pad 2, but surely some amount of that water will get turned into steam during launch. On top of that, if the water deluge system activates at Pad 2 but an abort happens, it's very likely they'd still be able to fire it again on the same day if they were able to clear what they would do. This is something that's impossible with the current setup at Pad 1. Now all of this testing we've seen of the deluge system has been through the flame trench and bucket. We expect in the future to see testing of the water-cooled deck on top of the launch mount, which will also have water running through it to cool it and protect it during launches. However, the outfitting work is still ongoing at the launch mount for that system, so we'll have to wait a little bit until we see testing of that side of the deluge system. Hopefully on Pad 2, this will mean we won't see the same roasting that the launch mount on Pad 1 gets every launch. On previous ships, SpaceX normally left a bunch of the thermal protection system work for after the static fire testing happened, but this time, there's only a handful of tiles missing in the nose cone area and a few others in one of the flaps, and that's basically it. Ship 38's heat shield also looks a lot better because it features the crunch wrap that I'd also mentioned last week. This is a special way of gap-filling the tiles that SpaceX used in certain areas of Ship 37, where they just used the same white felt that's installed on the back of the heat shield, but it's instead wrapped around the back insides of each tile, hence the crunch wrap name. These tiles, the ones with the crunch wrap, worked really well, and because of that, most of the tiles on Ship 38 now have it. So that's why the outlines in between each tiles is all white and pretty on Ship 38. Now, of course, with Ship 38 at the pad, the important thing is the testing, and unfortunately, as of the time of recording this video, Ship 38 had 2 consecutive test grubs on Thursday and Friday. Sure enough, on Monday, SpaceX got the job done. The launch date for Flight 11 has been officially announced, coming right after the recent ship test. The road was closed, and we saw a 6-engine static fire of Ship 38, one step closer to Starship Flight 11. With engine testing complete, Ship 38 will likely roll back to the production site to be ready for flight, which could happen pretty quickly, given that, again, a lot of the heat shield is further along than previous ships. Teams will also probably remove all of the ship testing modifications at the pad and prepare it for flight. And another good sign that Flight 11 is coming sooner rather than later was spotted on Saturday when a hot staging ring rolled out of the Star Factory. We expect that this is Booster 15's ring, and provided it is, this is the last Block 2 hot stage ring we'll see installed on a booster. We've now reached the final test of Flight 11, highlighted by the impressive performance of the 6 engines on Ship 38. No issues were reported during or after the trial, which is a strong indicator that the test was a complete success. The U.S. Coast Guard issued a local notice to mariners, confirming that the launch window is set between October 6th and October 12th. The schedule is carefully designed to maximize visibility, analysis, and data collection. According to additional documentation, October 6th has been designated as the primary launch date, while the remaining days serve as backup opportunities. SpaceX is expected to release an official announcement soon on X and its website to confirm the exact date. If the flight proceeds as early as the 6th, then the mission is less than 2 weeks away. Of course, that will depend on how smoothly preparations move forward, because SpaceX has multiple opportunities within the window. That leaves a little over a week to complete the remaining work. The first step will be transporting Ship 38 back to the production site. Road closures have already been scheduled between midnight and 4 a.m. on the 24th to accommodate the move. The ship transport stand has been prepared, and Ship 38 has already been lifted from it. From there, it will be transferred directly to Mega Bay 2. Inside Mega Bay 2, engineers will perform comprehensive reliability checks. The engines, which have just endured extreme stress during the test, will be the top priority. Each engine must demonstrate stability to avoid any risk of failure, ensuring consistent performance from liftoff all the way through landing. Among them, one sea-level engine will receive special attention. This engine must relight in space, which is a critical task, especially since no single engine relay test was conducted beforehand. The next system, under scrutiny, will be the heat shield. This hardware has been subjected to intense heat, vibration, and pressure during the test. Ship 38 carries a more complete installation than earlier prototypes, including important upgrades such as the use of the crunch wrap design. That being said, we did have a bunch of action this week related to Flight 11, like Ship 38 rolling to the launch site and being installed on Pad 1 for static fire testing. Following Booster 15's static fire test campaign a couple of weeks ago, teams modified the launch mount to allow Ship 38 to go through its own test campaign, and in a matter of days, here it was at the pad. The heat shield on Ship 38 looks so good. Once these checks are complete, SpaceX will move forward with installing the payload integration system as well as the flight termination system. Super Heavy Booster 15 is already in strong shape. It has completed hot staging installation, and possibly its own flight termination system installation as well. This means it's essentially ready for rollout to the launch pad. Speaking of the launch pad, the pad itself will also require final adjustments once Ship 38 has departed. Unlike before, this will likely be a complete removal because the orbital launch mount Pad 1 is expected to undergo modifications after Flight 11. SpaceX estimates that about 1 week will be sufficient to bring the pad fully back online for the mission. The focus of Flight 11 is not records or speed, but success. And that success will mark the beginning of what SpaceX calls the Version 3 era, a critical stage in which the company must achieve new goals in preparation for future missions to the Moon and Mars. When do you think Flight 11 will be?
And that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and that's all for today's update. If you enjoyed watching and found it useful, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. And if you want to support our channel and if you want to be up to date, you can become an exclusive member, so click on our perks through the link in the description below. Thanks to watching and see you next time.